Such a disastrous performance of Macron that the French press had to exclaim, "France is now regarded by China as an antiquated nation, chaotic, politically ineffective, and economically mediocre." Here's the scoop. Macron just finished a state visit to China that was a total virtual world conquest. Apparently, the last time France went this viral on Chinese social media was back during the Paris Olympics opening ceremony. Our Chinese buddies are saying Macron looks so cheerful over there, he was laughing with his eyes closed. Which means he must have finally found the populace of his dreams. Why so happy? Well, back in France, the citizens occasionally smack his cheek, throw eggs and tomato shells and all at him, offer him golden words and jade meanings, sarcastic insults, and parade his effigy in protests for a bit of excitement. So, when he landed in China and got a superstar welcome from students, you can bet our man was ecstatic. The French internet folks, seeing how contented both sides looked, were so salty and fed up that they publicly suggested, "Hey, maybe we should just gift our pilot to them, no need for thanks, right?" This widespread sentiment was their way of mourning the fact that France is now being treated like an ancient, mediocre country. Honestly, the logic of our Chinese friends is purely innocent and simple. You meet a living, breathing UN Security Council president who you can touch for free. Why wouldn't you seize that chance? It's a better deal than paying admission to the zoo to see a panda where you can't even touch. Our Chinese friends are even suggesting that if Macron gets too stressed with work later, he should just treat himself to a trip to a university campus in China. The sad part is, that brief feeling of standing among a genuine populace was the only joy Macron harvested from the China trip. A performance so pathetic that the French press had to exclaim, "France is now regarded by China as an antiquated nation, chaotic, politically ineffective, and economically mediocre." How depressing. When did the great power of France start getting this blatant slap in the face from a developing country like China? What exactly did Grandpa Xi do to Macron? Because the second he stepped foot in Paris, our pilot immediately started flexing his muscles, threatening to unleash Trump-style tariffs on China. And now, should our Chinese friends actually be scared? To understand the full disaster, we need to look at the context of our pilot, the man from Gaul trip. It was a weekend of total chaos, I tell you. First, Dr. Ursula announced a majestic plan to transfer Euro 210 billion of monopoly money to the regime of the Clown King. She was throwing her hands around like it was a 100% done deal. But the reality is the figure isn't 210 billion euros, it's 165 billion euros. The remaining 45 billion euros is simply a one-year deferral on debt repayments for previous loans. Second, the EU buddies aren't actually pulling that 165 billion euros out of their own pockets. It's all Russian money. Euro 140 billion is held at the Euroclear depository in Belgium, and 25 billion euros is scattered across other nations, mainly Germany. Third, literally everyone is protesting this EU's great bank heist. From Euroclear, the Belgian government, the Belgian parliament, Hungary, Germany, France, Italy, and even the European Central Bank. The US is protesting too, even pressuring Poland and the Baltic nations, reminding these loudmouth comrades who is actually protecting their security. Of course, they aren't doing this out of boundless love for Russia. But Euroclear suddenly announced that they don't just hold documents for Russian assets in the EU, they also hold documents for European assets in Russia. If the EU steals Russian money first, Russia has the full legal right to seize all those European assets. And shocker, the value of European assets in Russia is up to 900 billion euros. This was the ultimate checkmate. So, as usual, what the Kremlin's deceptive propaganda released before it turns out to be the absolute truth? Unbelievable. Merz's government normally runs its mouth non-stop about supporting Ukraine as much as possible, but alas, poetry doesn't pay the bills. German corporations have about 100 billion euros in assets frozen in Russia. These leaders might lose their seats, but capital cannot lose money. Dr. Ursula also had a backup plan in case the Russian money couldn't be stolen, issuing 90 billion euros in European bonds. As soon as they heard this, Hungary and several other countries immediately fired back. The EU doesn't even have enough money for itself, and the EU also doesn't need Ukraine. And it gets better. The US announced a new national security strategy, no longer calling Russia an enemy or rival, but instead detailing very clearly how Europe has abandoned shared values with the US. Oh my God, democracy is gone. Elon Musk, seizing the moment. immediately pointed out that the broken shoulder syndrome in Europe has exceeded all limits and is manipulating the identity verification process. In short, according to him, the European Union needs to be dissolved. Honestly, Europe has never been this broke and so thoroughly played by its allies. Against this beautiful backdrop, our pilot flew to Beijing with clear objectives. 1. Beg for money. 2. Prove Europe can still influence the world's second superpower, and that France is still Europe's older brother. Regarding the money begging, the EU has a trade deficit of up to $357 billion with China. Therefore, the mindset of our pilot and the shared thought of the sycophant crowd in Brussels is that China must buy more European goods and cut back on exports. Basically, the EU's trade rulebook for China is pretty simple. Rule 1. What I need, for example, rare earth minerals, you must supply enough. What I have too much of, for example, meat, wine, you must buy all of it. Rule 2. What you need, for example, high-end chips, I ban immediately. What you are good at, for example, electric cars, I boycott immediately. When I buy your goods, it means I am securing the supply chain. When I sell you goods, it means I am giving you market access. If I ban you, it means I am protecting technology. If I boycott you, it means I am ensuring fair competition. In short, the right to define right, wrong, fair, and unfair always belongs to me. With that rulebook firmly in mind, Macron set off for China full of confidence. Perhaps he was experiencing peak delusion, because during the money negotiations, Monsieur brought up demands related to Ukraine, causing his already slim chance of scoring cash to plummet straight to zero. For instance, the hopeful order for 500 Airbus planes that the pilot had been eagerly waiting for just dissolved into thin air. Why? Because that would reduce Grandpa Xi's leverage in negotiations with the great President Trump. The soybean savior needs to market Boeing too. China also showed no sign of easing regulations for French cognac or pork producers. This made him the master negotiator who gets nothing. Whose idea was it to make things difficult for Chinese electric cars anyway? The peak comedy was when Macron tried to use his charm to lure China into cutting ties with Russia and pressuring great Emperor Putin to negotiate. But Grandpa Xi, with his fire eyes and golden pupils that see through all demons and monsters, replied, "France, stand on the right side of history." Yeah, that's truly as deep as a Chinaman. He went to preach to them, only to be preached to himself. The joy of standing among the genuine populace couldn't soothe this rage, so bitter. Immediately upon returning to Paris, he announced, "I tried to explain to the Chinese side that their trade surplus is unsustainable because they are harming their own customers, especially as they are barely importing much from us anymore. I said that if they do not react, Europe will be forced to apply strong measures in the coming months. Following the example of the United States, such as imposing tariffs on Chinese goods. Oh, the humanity. Even Trump struggles when sparring with old man Xi, yet our pilot thinks Europe can force China to its knees with a tariff hit. Just the rare earth mineral card alone is enough for Grandpa Xi to make the European comrades fall flat on their faces. Do you even believe it? Let's be clear, China dominates the world in rare earth minerals. Anyone who needs good, cheap rare earths just calls them up and talks to the Chinese. It's not because the Chinese have more. Rare earth minerals aren't that rare. The US has them, Australia has them, Japan has them, Vietnam has them, plenty. The problem is, only the Chinese can mine them the cheapest, most effectively, and refine them to a level where satellites run smooth as velvet. Without Chinese rare earths, the core military component production lines from electronic systems and sensors to parts for fighter jets and drones will all come to a screeching halt. Just this October, the Flying Dutchman confiscated, which means they stole. By the way, the company Nexperia, owned by Wintech, a Chinese tech conglomerate, they declared in a fancy and euphemistic way that it was to protect Europe's supply of semiconductor chips for cars and electronics, and to protect Europe's economic security. The Flying Dutchman temporarily seized 2 tables and 3 plastic chairs, and then hoped Nexperia would keep supplying microchips. The problem is, Nexperia's production facilities are in Guangdong, not in the Netherlands or Europe. So when the Chinese retaliated by blocking Nexperia's products from leaving China, the European comrades got freezing cold feet because their auto production lines were at risk of being completely mothballed. And the inevitable outcome? You know it. Macron clearly proves he doesn't watch his predecessors and learn from their mistakes. Reality has proven that tariffs only ever screw the consumer. European folks have been using Chinese goods that are good quality, cheap, and plentiful for ages. Now the pilot demands tariffs, so goods prices will soar. Add that to the persistent inflation from the Russia-Ukraine conflict for the past few years. Guess whether the citizens will launch a revolution, grab the pilot by the neck, string him up, and light the fuse. But anyway, after threatening China, Monsieur zipped off to London to gather with his gang. This meeting instantly became known as the Sad Boys Club, including Zelensky from Ukraine, Merz from Germany, and the host, Starmer. This was a closed-door meeting with no press conference. The reporters, having zero work, focused on Larry the cat. As soon as the cat saw Zelensky, it immediately tucked its tail and turned away. So rude. For the meet, Merz said to reporters that he was quite skeptical about some details in the U.S. peace proposal. Macron chimed in, telling reporters that the Russian economy was starting to face difficulties, especially after our latest sanctions. Merz puffed out his cheeks and declared that the Ukraine issue is Ukraine's business. Putting on an important air, Zelensky announced that the Gang of Four would make very important decisions at this gathering. The coming days might be decisive for ending the conflict in Ukraine. And they all affirmed, "We hold many important cards." This was surely their daily dose of hopium, aimed at Trump, who has repeatedly asserted that Ukraine has no valuable cards left. After the photos, the four immediately vanished from the journalists' view. But less than an hour later, they reappeared outside number 10. After the final handshake, Macron and Merz smiled relievedly, skipping off the scene. Their faces and actions seemed to say, "We've endured enough of that, let's go." The host waved goodbye to the two leaders with unconcealed envy, while Zelensky was practically in tears. A moment later, Zelensky sadly said goodbye to Starmer and left. The British Prime Minister sighed a long, heavy breath, as if a great weight had been lifted. Next, the Clown King will head to Brussels, clearly having failed to secure money in London, hoping Dr. Lady can help. But just in case that fails, he's already booked a flight to Rome after leaving Brussels. If you're going to beg, you might as well ask everyone to be sure. The Clown King has revealed himself to be nothing more than a poor schmuck. He's desperately begging for money, using every dirty trick to survive this craving. No one can feed that bottomless pit. Even parents cut off their own children, let alone this lost cause, EU squad.